going on, people? Welcome to another brand new edition of the podcast. And today we're joined by one of the most amazing TV presenters and journalists out there, Michelle Ackerley. How are you? Okay?
I'm very well, thank you. That was a lovely intro, Georgio.
Thank you. I try now.
That's perked me up for a Monday morning.
Yes, that's what I love to do. How's things though? Okay?
Yeah, very well, thanks. It's busy. I mean, this year has been this year and last year has been crazy, hasn't it?
It has.
But for me, I'm really grateful that work is coming in. It's very varied. I've had the opportunity to see family and friends now, which has just been so nice. So yeah, I'm very good.
I'm so glad to hear. I mean, I always love to ask my guests, how has this past 18 months or so been for you? Have you been okay?
Well, yeah, thanks for asking. Health-wise, I've been good, and family and friends too, which is, I'm really grateful for. In terms of work, it's been a crazy old time. Randomly, at the very start of the pandemic, so March 2020, I ended up being quite busy because I was doing a show every day about the pandemic. So we were live every day on BBC One, which was actually quite an amazing opportunity, really, because we were able to interact on a daily basis with everybody, and we were all asking questions at the same time, weren't we? Like, what does this mean, and how do we react to this? So the start of the pandemic, it was this surreal experience for me. I was driving into central London every day, and it was completely just empty, just the streets were so quiet, and then coming home and isolating again, and then going back to work. And then off the back of that, various trips to go abroad for work got cancelled, understandably so, because of the pandemic. So it's been a strange old time. I think we've all basically, especially within my industry, we've had to get used to different ways of working. A lot of the time I'll be chatting and connecting and interviewing people over Zoom and FaceTime and Teams. Do you know what I mean? So it's a weird old world at the minute, but we're muddling through. So yeah, it's not too bad.
I'm just so glad that you're okay though.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, how did you, because like you said, it was a strange time for everyone. I mean, for you, how did you find it going from being so busy in the studio and in live to then doing all your work, or most of it anyway, from home back to the studio again?
It was a real learning curve, actually. I think, for me as a presenter, one of the things that I really enjoy about my job is having the opportunity to meet people face to face. And part of the interviewing process as well for me is having the proximity to someone, especially if you're in a live scenario and you're able to kind of read their body language. You can tell whether someone might be slightly nervous because they might be, twitching their fingers or moving their feet, and those kind of senses that we rely on within a kind of live situation are very different when you're working from home and you're doing things over a screen. So for me, it was learning a different way of working. And there are pros and cons to that in a way. The cons are kind of, as I explained, wanting to have that proximity and to be near somebody. But actually, I learned that you can get a really meaningful and quite a special interview and connect with someone in a different kind of way, even though there's distance. Because I found with certain people, especially if you're doing kind of live things, they can be quite nervous going into a studio environment with cameras all around them, and you're asking them to be so normal and relaxed in an environment which is completely the opposite. Whereas when you're able to chat to people in their home surroundings, and sometimes I'd be doing interviews, the dog would run through shot, or, the husband or the wife would come in with a cup of tea in the background, like, Mary, do you want another? When are we eating? Do you know what I mean? And it actually adds that real touch of real life, which for me was great, because then I'd be able to react to that and be like, oh, who's that? Oh, come on in and have a chat. Spin your camera around. Let's see what room you're in, what you're doing in that space. So actually, I was able to kind of, do a 180 on it and find those moments that actually make you feel more connected and less distant, even though you are, you've got that separation.
It's so true. I could got to be my next question, actually. If you did find that people, compared to being in studio, being at home, if there's like a big difference in contrast in how they would react and answer your questions.
Definitely would. And even things like, you just got to see a different side to people. I remember interviewing one lady, and she was in a garden, and she was taking me around all the different plants she'd planted that morning, and I've interviewed her a few times, and that was probably my best interview with her. And it's the first time that I've not interviewed her in person.
Mm.
So it just kind of, I think all of us have probably learned to just be a bit more real. And well, because we've had this one thing that's bonded us all, connected us all in terms of how we're feeling, there's been that other level of the interview process which has come out of it, which has been so fascinating, really.
It has. And I know that you graduated from Manchester University with a degree in psychology, which is incredible, absolutely amazing. And I know I always ask at least one stupid question in my interviews, but do you feel like that kind of helps you in a sense how to read people's body language and how they're reacting and talking to you?
I think that's a great question, to be
Thank you.
honest, and the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, when I studied psychology at university, my main reason for choosing it was because I've always been so interested in people, human behaviour, and psychology as a degree that gave me the opportunity to put some real science and structure behind my interest. And one of my tutors at the time at university, he was he used to do a lot of stuff within the media. So back in the days, I mean, I'm quite old now, Georgio, but back in the
Not
days
at all.
when Big Brother first started, it was seen as more of a social experiment. So my psychology tutor used to go on various TV programs and really talk about people's body language and the character profiles within these kind of new reality TV shows that were coming out. And it was at that point I thought, this is actually really interesting how you can use psychology, observations of people's behavior, and do studies into the science of our psyche and connect that to a creative industry. So when I first started, and I was doing work experience in Manchester BBC, for me it was just an amazing experience trying to tap into the creative ideas that the different productions were making, but also from a psychological point of view, thinking about human behavior and thinking about how different people perform their tasks, go about their day to day. Within TV, you've got various different personality profiles, from the extrovert who just wants to be in front of everything to the more of the introvert, very considered, that will sit down and really, be methodical in their creative process. So it's fascinating. It's continued to really inspire me and create those questions, which is great.
That is great. And talk about those introverts and extroverts. I mean, did you find a big difference online as well? Like, with the introverts more outgoing and the extroverts a bit more kind of solemn in their approach and a bit more kind of quiet, or was it the same old way, really?
Again, I think that's a really interesting question. I found a real mix, and I don't think, I think there's people that you probably expect to be maybe introverts a bit more confident online, and extroverts maybe, more of themselves, and trying to get more of themselves across online. But actually, it's been a real mixture, because I think, certain people, if they are the type that love being in the center of a group and in the midst of it all, actually then having chats on a computer screen is very, very different. And I've had conversations with people where when they're sat in front of a screen, and normally they're very bubbly and chatty, they're like, well, where do I look? Or even simple things like actually finding it really off-putting to see yourself back on the screen. And I know there's things that you can do with your settings and stuff, but all those elements which feed into somebody's personality of being an extrovert or an introvert are kind of taken away a bit. And I found personally, you've got to find a new sense of yourself online. Do you know what I mean? It's not the same. You're not behaving in the same way. So interestingly, it's been a bit of both. I find with certain people, the thing that's brought them real confidence is actually being able to sit and have a chat from the waist up and keep their slippers on. Do you know what I mean? And that's actually made them feel far more confident. Like, I've got something next to me that I can kind of look at halfway through the interview and think, yeah, that's perked me up a bit. So it's been a real mixture.
It's so true, because I'm wearing my slippers right now, and I got my.
Me too. There we go.
Here we go. Got mine as well.
Oh yeah, quite similar actually.
Got quite a bit less further. But it's so true about that kind of having that kind of essence of kind of familiarity around you. It's like I got my lights around me. I got my kind of Funko toys behind me as well. So I got like things that make me feel really comfortable because I'm very introverted, but yet
Mm.
being able to talk online, like just having chats with people, makes me feel really confident and happy. It's
Yeah.
strange, isn't it, how it happens?
It's really strange, and I think that is something again that's really come out through this process. And actually, again, it's the way that we've connected with each other. Do you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
think, oh, actually, I enjoy doing that too. Oh, yeah. Well, if you just turn the camera around, you'll see this absolute state over there. Oh, yeah, me too. Do you know what I mean? All those little things, or like you say, pictures in the background. Like I love that picture in the background.
Oh,
It
thank
gives
you.
you an essence. It's wicked.
Thank you.
It's
Matthew
wicked.
Superman fan. So.
Oh my god, that's so funny because I was watching the TV yesterday and I saw like one of the old school Superman films came up as, oh, you could watch this. I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna watch. But again, these are things that normally, probably in a different environment, you wouldn't actually get that essence of someone's
Yeah,
personality, would you?
it's true. It's so true. That's why I
Yeah,
love it though so much.
that's it.
Yeah.
Totally.
But during your time at university, I mean, just growing up in general, actually, what kind of got you interested in psychology in the first place? Was it people around you, family and friends, or something that you read or something you did at school, like growing up? What got you interested in the first place?
Well, my mum is a life coach. Well, she doesn't do life coaching at the minute, but she did for a good number of years. So, and I think a lot of it probably stems from my family dynamic. So
Mm.
my grandfather is Ghanaian, and before he moved over to the UK, he was part of a tribe in Accra, a very small tribe where there's various kind of chiefhoods within that tribe. And I guess if you were to attribute it to the Western world, it would almost be like that person is like the life coach, the person where people come to and speak about their problems, be it social, relationship, financial, and that one person there, the chief is there to listen, to understand people's behavior and to try and connect and find a solution. And that was my granddad's role before he moved to the UK. So I feel like that essence of being interested in people, being able to communicate and wanting to listen has probably come down from my granddad to my mum in the jobs that she does, and to me. So when I was in school, it was something that to be honest, I hadn't, when I was younger, I hadn't really heard that much about psychology as a subject and what it involved. But when we got the opportunity to study it in the later years at school, I was really intrigued. And I just so happened to have a really good teacher as well. I think that's what made the difference, that brought this subject to life for me. And it was from there that I thought, well, actually, if I do go to university, I want to be spending my time there doing a subject that I'm really interested in. I mean, university is not for everyone. It's expensive. And I thought, if
Mm.
I'm going to do it, I'd rather spend time doing something that I'm intrigued about and I'd like to find out more about. So that's where it came from, really.
Brilliant. Can I know that you just mentioned it there that your granddad was the chief of is it the GA tribe or Jar Pride tribe? Yeah,
The Gar tribe.
Gar
Yeah,
tribe. Yeah,
yeah.
that's amazing. I mean, what kind of age did you find out that he was chief of that tribe? And did you hear like
Um,
loads of stories as well growing up?
yeah. I mean, gosh, I can't remember when I first heard it. Would have been when I was very young, because my granddad's lived in the UK a long time now. For me, it's always been fascinating. I still haven't been to Accra, which I'm embarrassed about, to be honest, because I really want to be able to go. I've got family over there that I've still not connected with. But gosh, over the years, I've seen so many pictures. I mean, I've sat down with my granddad and he's told me so many stories, and it's like it's a completely different world. There's like pictures of my granddad even when he was a young kid, like on the beaches of Accra, and the pictures where when they have the celebrations and the chief is carried through the streets with all the community and the family all around them. It's beautiful.
It
It's
is.
really beautiful in it, and it's a special thing and something that's so different to kind of my world and my life. And interestingly, I went to a photography exhibition at the weekend with one of my friends, and it was by a photographer, a Ghanaian photographer called James, who grew up in Accra and then moved to West London, and he just captured all these beautiful photos of real life in Accra. And looking at these photos that were framed beautifully on the wall in this amazing gallery in Hyde Park Corner, I was looking at them thinking, I mean, this is part of my history. It's a part of my grandfather's life.
Yeah.
And you know, the photos that I've sat down and seen in his front living room are the same as the ones that are captured so amazingly on these walls. So it does give you a real special connection. And you know, and I guess that's where my interest in other people, other cultures, and questioning things probably comes from as well.
That's amazing. I mean, have you ever done like a piece of TV work regarding that whole process, or like a bit of journalism?
That's really interesting you should say that. I've been working on various ideas actually
Yeah.
around that, so I can't say too much at the minute.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's definitely an area that's of real interest. And even aside from television and television ideas, you know, TV is something when you're in it, it runs away with you, and you are going from one project to the next, to the next, to the next. For me, actually taking a bit of time out to travel to Ghana and immerse myself in that culture, I think from just a family and connection point of view will be so good on a personal level. But also coming back to the UK and as a journalist, as a writer, as a creator, thinking of new ideas as well, that can only be a positive.
For sure, 100%. I mean, you mentioned CRA there, but what's exactly involved in Accra, and what is that exactly?
So Accra is the capital of Ghana, so it's in
Okay.
West
Oh, okay.
Africa. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where my granddad was from.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And you talk about your granddad. Actually, you mentioned that he's like the sharpest dresser that you know, and he's got like a whole collection of vibrant shirts. And
He really has. He really
yeah,
has.
and he's passed his style on to you. I mean, does he still have these collection of amazing shirts?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, gosh, I have a lot of clothes, Giorgio, but my
Yeah.
granddad could definitely surpass me. I mean, every time I've been to see him, you know, he'll open the front door, and even if he's not really going anywhere that day, he'll just be in like a three-piece suit, or he'll have a really funky shirt on. He just loves style and fashion, and for him, there would be no reason whatsoever not to
Yeah.
dress up. It's like, I'm like, where are you going today, Granddad? Oh, nowhere. Like, well, oh wow, you look great. It's like, yeah, thanks.
I
I do,
love
yeah.
that. I love that. Good. You said that he's passed your style on tea, hasn't he? Like those vibrant
Yeah.
colours, which I absolutely
Oh
love.
yeah. I love colors. I love patterns. You know, I just love it. It brightens my day. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? And it's a thing. It's an extension of your personality. And definitely within certain programs that I work on, you have to kind of tone it down a bit. You know, I can't go on Crimewatch wearing like a three-piece kind of floral jumpsuit type thing. But on
Yeah.
those opportunities where I can kind of bring my style within what I do day to day in my job, it's great fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's so good. And going back to your mum, actually, didn't she help you to teach you to sew as well growing up?
She did, yes.
Yeah.
My mum's very creative as well. So she's just always been into arts and crafts. And actually, one of the first kids TV presenting gigs that I got was an art show. And I definitely think that comes from mum. I mean, when me and my brother were kids, she'd do all the curtains within the house, and she'd sew everything, and she just taught herself how to do it. You know, she just got a sewing machine and thought, well, we haven't got a lot of money at the minute,
Yeah.
I'll do everything. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's actually growing up, I think, has given me the confidence, or at least the mindset to give things a go. You know,
Yeah.
I remember when I got the opportunity to present on this kids TV show, an art show, when I first started presenting. And I went home to mum and I said, Mum, the producers have asked me to audition for this art show, but I can't draw. You know, I've not studied art or anything. She was like, yes, you can. I was like, but I can't. She was like, you can. You've got to give it a go. You know, if this is something that you really want to do, then you can spend your evenings like practicing how to do this. If you've got an interest in it and a real passion, you know, you can do this. And that is how a lot of my opportunities have come about, through not having that mindset of, well, I don't normally necessarily do this. I haven't studied fully in this, therefore I don't think I should put myself in the ring. You know, that kind of creative mindset from my mum has been like, well, teach yourself. You know, I got myself a sewing machine. I did all the curtains in the house, and I'm interested in it. And
Yeah.
you know, if you've got that kind of impetus to want to learn. I mean, obviously not everyone is going to be good at everything. It's not like, you know, I couldn't sew any curtains, for example, no way. But But having that mindset of let's give it a try and see what happens has definitely come from my family.
Oh, for sure. Because I was like watching your work, like on the kids' show. It's like such a natural fit for you. It's just like he's made just
Thank
for
you.
you. You know, pleasure. And do you still sew every now and then to this day?
I do, yeah. I mean, I've not had, well, to be fair, last year I had more time.
Hmm.
I like sewing. I've created like door stops and things like that. But what I started really enjoying was customizing clothing.
Hmm.
Because again, from mum, like she gave me this massive kind of like sewing kit. And it's got all these old buttons from jackets, like funky jackets that she used to wear in the 80s, and like bits of material. Um, so I've got like this box of old buttons where I'll kind of customize t-shirts with cool things. And especially during the pandemic where we weren't really going out, it was, I'd spend afternoons just getting creative and think, well, what can I make here? Let's create something new. Let's create something fun. And I actually just find it very therapeutic.
Hmm.
Between customizing clothing, knitting, my grandma taught me to knit. So I tried to take that up again. I have to say I am terrible at it. Like I started knitting a scarf and I don't know what I did. It's called some kind of process where you kind of keep adding on a line, and it just turned into this massive patchwork blanket. It started like really narrow and then just started going like that, which I'm saying was the whole idea of it. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's obviously what I wanted to do.
Of course, because
Sure.
I'm so clumsy myself. I knitting it. I tried it once or twice in my life. I can't do it. It's like, forget that. I can't be bothered. But although I
It
play
takes a lot
piano,
of patience.
it
Oh yeah,
does.
you clearly play piano. I mean, I couldn't do that.
I bet you could though. Put your mind to it, like your
Yeah,
mum
that's
said.
true. That's very true. I eat my own words.
Oh, but I say that going back in time a little bit. Actually, you grew up and went to school at was it Alderley Edge
Yes,
School,
yeah.
and in your last year became deputy head girl.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. Good research.
Thank you. I love to do my research. I mean, well, how was your time at school? Did you really enjoy it growing up?
I did. Yeah, I had an interesting time at school, I would say. I remember when I first did the entrance exam for the school. It was Mount Carmel at the time. And, I was lucky enough to get in. I had a conversation with the headmistress, as you used to have to do before going. And I had my hair in braids.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the headmistress saying, you can come to this school, but you'll have to you're not allowed to wear your hair in braids coming to this school. I remember even at an early age saying, well, what do you mean? She was like, well, you need to take your hair out and just have it straight. I was like, okay, well, for one, my hair isn't straight because it's
Mm-hmm.
afro. And two, wearing your hair in braids as a Black person especially is a part of your identity. It's a part of your culture. So from the very beginning of, and to be fair, after that conversation, and me as quite a young woman, well, a young girl, to be fair, having to explain that, the headmistress did accept it. She's no longer at the school at the time. But I remember thinking, Alderley especially is a lovely village, is a lovely town. It's predominantly, a white middle class area, as is the school. So for me, kind of growing up, I had some amazing times at that school and have friends still to this day. But it was an interesting time for me in terms of my identity as a young mixed race girl, because I never saw anybody else like me at the school, so it was an interesting time. I think when you're growing up anyway, becoming a young teenager, you're impressionable and you have insecurities about yourself and your identity. So there was a lot of that kind of going on. And going back to my granddad, I'd spend weekends going back to see him and to chat with him, almost feeling like connecting back with who I am and being confident in myself, and having that kind of connection to my grandfather and going back to school, I think really helped. So yeah, I did have a great time at school. As I said, I made some lovely friends, and my education that I got was second to none. Hence why I was able to go to university. But on a kind of personal understanding, my own growth and my identity and culture, it was probably a mixed experience, I would say.
Yeah, because do you feel like that kind of affected you in a way growing up?
That's interesting, because sometimes I think you only realize on reflection, like what impact something has had on you, or if you compare it to somebody else's experience, you think, oh, that's actually how I felt, or that's completely different to how I felt. So in terms of affecting me, it's definitely something that I've thought of, and in the sense that if I was ever lucky enough to have kids, it's something that I'd be very mindful of in terms of all of our identities and how comfortable we feel and how confident we feel in our own skin, and making sure that we are able to embrace ourselves. I think growing up, that's something I always had issues with. I always felt quite insecure, and reflecting back, I think, well, maybe the connection to school and identity had something to do with that. It's when you kind of get to an adult and you're more comfortable in your own position, you think, okay, from a psychological point of view, maybe those are the dots that are kind of, you can join up. But it's this, everybody's got their thing, haven't they? And being able to talk about it and understand it more is the key.
Of course. And was it a few years long, let's say like a teenager or a young adult, where you thought, you know what, this is me now. I'm happy in my own skin and my colors and whatever I like to wear. This is just me, and I'm happy in that. Was that when you were a bit older?
I would say so, yeah. Especially going to university. Manchester as well as a city, it's such a vibrant, city. It's got great culture, and everybody kind of, I think, comes into their own a bit more, after school in whatever they do. So definitely for me, it was then. And, when I was at school, I was wearing a uniform every day. As soon as I could wear my own clothes and express myself in a different way and get those colours on, it was great. And then especially going from university and starting work experience at the BBC. I mean, I've not worn a uniform since I was at school, which was God knows how many years ago now.
Yeah.
And I remember my first day at the BBC and walking through that those doors in the corridor and just seeing the mix of styles, the mix of fashion. I was like, this is brilliant. This is where I actually truly feel like I can start to express myself a bit more.
Yeah, that's like so good to hear that. And how did you first find your time at BBC? You applied during your time at university, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I applied in my third year of university because I remember reading on the website that normally it takes like a good few months for them to get back to you. So I thought, well, I'm halfway through my third year. I'll apply now because then maybe if I'm lucky, they might get in touch with me by the time my degree is finished. But I don't know whether they just had not many applications that year, but they got back really quick and asked me for an interview. So I went for the interview and was successful. So I got this 4-week work experience placement, which was whilst I was still doing my degree at Manchester. And so my kind of halls of residence and where all my lectures were just a bit further up the road from the BBC along Oxford Road. So I would literally get up first thing in the morning, go to the BBC, doing my work experience. At lunchtime, I would run to my lecture group, like print off all the notes and everything, then try and do as much as I could in my lunch break, come back to the BBC and then get home. And then until stupid o'clock that night, I'd be learning my degree as well as doing any other prep that I needed to do from my work experience placement. But for me, I was just so excited to be a part of a creative industry. I mean, it was not lost on me walking along those corridors and seeing presenters that I'd watched on telly come in for brainstorms and, going to brainstorms myself, sat with other people, coming up with new ideas, thinking, wow, these people actually come up with ideas that I see on the television and I'm sat with them. This is mad, to be a part of that process. And even now it's, I've worked in, I started work experience in 2005. So I've worked in the TV industry for many years now, and it's still not lost on me, that sense of excitement and the fact that you can affect change. It can be difficult at times. It's not without its challenges, but to be in an industry where you can be so creative and be sitting, be walking, be chatting, come up with an idea, and then that could potentially lead to being broadcast on TV or radio or in a podcast is really exciting.
That is really exciting. Mad too. Like, I know your third position was Secret Life of the Shop, was it?
It was.
That's brilliant. And how do you feel coming into that? Yeah, that's so good.
It was really fascinating because my boss was a chap called Richard Mesa, who's like within the documentary field, a really well-known documentary maker. He used to do the first kind of behind the scenes documentaries of Katie Price before, you know, she started doing loads of reality TV, and he's got a really interesting style, and he's quite introverted. And so he was doing this documentary like obs doc called Secret Life of the Shop, which was about a department store in Middlesbrough called Psych. And it was only me as the runner, Richard as the documentary maker, and Julie as the researcher, just the three of us. And we would travel around everywhere together. And it was quite a surreal experience, really, because Richard was very, very quiet.
Yeah.
You know, it took a while to kind of understand him and get to know. So me with my kind of psychology head on was really trying to kind of peel back the layers to kind of understand this really fascinating personality, because he was the type that he would look at anything and you could tell the cogs were whirring, his brain was ticking like, okay, how could this be an interesting story? And watching him with contributors, seeing how he would ask them questions, or he would be really okay with uncomfortable, what I would call uncomfortable silences, as in he'd ask a question and they might give him a very quick answer, but then he wouldn't say anything after that. He'd just leave.
Wow.
He'd just leave, you know, and eventually that person, that contributor, would say something, would offer up more information, which again I think is an amazing psychological tool. And he was, you know, I learned a lot from him in terms of how to interview different types of people and being okay with those moments that might feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, it was a great start into the industry, really, to be very immersed into a small team, and take it from there. Then I went on to, you know, larger teams of different formats and stuff. But yeah, it's I can remember it vividly. It was an amazing experience.
Oh, that is so good. That's amazing. And how does it work then in terms of taking it from, say, idea to actually TV? Like you mentioned brainstorming sessions there. So what's the whole process? What's the whole process then of taking an idea to the screen then? What goes into it?
Well, you know, there's various different ways nowadays, but within production teams, you have what they call a development team, where their kind of sole aim is to be creating new TV ideas. And kind of every so often there'll be kind of the commissioner's brief, so they'll say what kind of things they might be looking for. So it might be that, you know, there's been a load of property shows recently, right? The next thing we're looking for is X, Y, and Z. And then a development team with those kind of briefs will go and think, okay, this is our priority. Let's try and come up with some ideas around that. And so development teams would do, you know, a lot of market research. They'd look at what's interesting within the industry at the minute, what's kind of hitting the hot points in terms of what people are enjoying watching, how can we adapt that, how can we make it something different. They'd have brainstorms with other production teams. So I used to be a producer in development, and we would organise various brainstorms with other production teams within the BBC, but also have brainstorms with outside organisations, you know, with everybody and anyone to get a real feel for what's going on and how we can bring that to life. And then once you'd go on to write what they call a treatment. So you'd have your kind of top line of what the idea is about, a bit of a summary, and then you'd write the format points, what you'd see within that 60-minute, 30-minute program, who your presenter might be, who your experts might be. And then they have commissioning rounds. So sometimes there's kind of specific times where there'll be a commissioning round where the development teams will go and pitch these ideas to a commissioner. If that's inside the BBC, with independent production companies, they will have certain times where they'll pitch to the BBC or someone within the BBC team. And then if sometimes the BBC or ITV or Channel 4 will have pots of money where they'll say, we like this idea, we'd like you to go away and make a pilot. So we'll give you X amount of money to make a pilot, which is essentially like a taster tape. I've just finished a pilot at the moment with ITV, which we're waiting to hear back from the head of ITV as to if it's a go or not. So with the taster table, the pilot, you make your mini series to kind of show, well, this is what it would be like.
Mm-hmm.
Deliver that to, the commissioners, the powers that be, and then they give you a yes or a no, really. And then there's other, there's other ways where ideas get commissioned, where I've had meetings with exec producers or commissioners just, going for lunch or contacting them and say, look, I've got this idea around this, for smaller kind of VT ideas, film ideas that might fit into a bigger program. And things have got commissioned that way. So there's lots of creative opportunities. And it's interesting because some things can take a long time and others can get commissioned quite quickly. My mum and I have just, had a program commissioned together. We did the pilot for that in September of 2020. And then we found out that it was commissioned in May of 2021. And we've been, filming that ever since. So it depends, really. Sometimes it can be really quick. Sometimes it can take forever. It just depends.
Yeah, I actually asked my next question there, because I was going to ask actually if there's like a kind of like average time of how long programs are made. I mean, are some obviously pushed to be made a little bit quicker depending on what the subject might be about? For instance?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, for example, last year in May 2020, I finished doing Crimewatch. Then I got a call from one of the commissioners at BBC, and because we'd gone into lockdown, the BBC wanted to create a daily live magazine show off the back of what was happening, and the team had 10 days to make that, literally just 10 days to put that on air from start to finish. And we did 6 weeks of daily live shows for an hour. So that turnaround time was extremely quick. The team that did that were amazing. But because that was in response to something that was going on within the world, it was the responsibility of, TV makers to actually reflect that on what we're watching, and they knew that there'd be an appetite for it. So they had to get it out as quickly as possible. And then the reverse of that is the ITV pilot that I've been working on. I think they originally started that about 2 years ago, and we're still waiting to hear if that's something that will go ahead or not. So it really depends on the demands, what the climate's like, the temperature of the appetite for things, and the need really as well, how important it is to get this on air sooner rather than later.
Of course. I mean, for moments like that, how difficult is it for you and the team to get it out so quickly? How much pressure is there on you guys to get it out there as soon as possible?
Oh, there's a heck of a lot of pressure. I mean, especially from the production team. I mean, the program I was talking about there was last year was it was called Health Check UK Live on BBC One, and the team worked non-stop, like tirelessly to get it done. But what I always, and this is again what I find amazing about these teams and my colleagues, are that you're working with amazing people. You're working with amazing people that know that they need to get the job done, and those amazing people connect with other amazing people, and you all work together to, sometimes you do it, you're thinking, how the hell is this going to work? But it does, because you have to. For one, you have to do it. But the pressure is there, and for those types of teams, the producers were working well until the early hours, up stupid o'clock in the morning, and again and again and again, and we're doing it until that series was over. So there's definitely a lot of burnout within TV, especially with those types of programs that do have quick turnaround times. Even the show that I've just finished with my mum, it was a slightly longer turnaround time, but the key thing with that one was when the show did get commissioned, they were asked to do 15 45-minute episodes.
Wow.
We started filming it in May and they had to deliver it in September. That is not a lot of time to deliver 15 times 45 minutes. It's a lot of content. It's a lot of contributors that need to be booked during a time of COVID, where people are getting pinged left, right and centre on their phone. So 1 minute they're free to do it, the next minute they're not. There's a lot of pressure involved.
That is, but just hearing what you have to go through in order to get it out there is incredible. My hat goes off to you fully for doing that, honestly.
Oh God, it's not just me, honestly. There's a whole team
Yeah.
behind it. They're the real hard workers.
Oh, you all are. But when it comes to like live presenting, for instance, and how difficult is that to multitask? Say like talking and listening to the guest and then reading the auto cue to having something in your ear at the same time. Say, okay, quicker now, quicker. How difficult is that for you to do so many things at the same time?
I actually really enjoy it. I
Mm.
mean, when I first started doing it, it was like, gosh, this is different. But I really just thought, okay, let's focus now. And it is multitasking. It's a weird one because you focus, but you focused on like 5 different things so thoroughly all at the same time.
Mm.
And but I really enjoy it. I love the challenge of almost having to separate your brain.
Yeah.
So listening to someone saying, you need to wrap this up in 5 seconds, when the person that you're talking to is literally just about to go into another story, and you're thinking, okay, what do we do here?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the challenge and it's the adrenaline. It's like doing that, when you rub your stomach and pat your head, but like on steroids. Like it's full on. But weirdly, I find, like, people have asked me, how nerve-wracking is it? Did you feel kind of stressed when you're doing it? And weirdly for me, live television is the opposite. I feel when I'm doing live television, that is probably for me when you're actually doing it, when you are in it. I mean, the build up and the lead up can be quite nerve-wracking and stressful with all the prep and everything. But when you know that you're prepped and you're ready to go and you count down and you are bam on air, for me, that is probably the calmest and the most present that I am. Naturally, I'm an anxious person and I worry about everything. But when I'm doing those live TV shows, I really enjoy it. And I do actually really think it helps my mental health, because you don't have the opportunity to think about anything else but what you're doing. You have to have 100% focus on that. So I can't be thinking, oh man, did I leave the washing on? Oh, what did I cook for tea? Oh, I need to message them back. Oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. You've got to be thinking on what you do. You've got to be listening, really present, and listening to whatever someone's saying to you off the back of you asking them a question, listening to the director giving you instructions, being aware of the timings. It's like making a beautiful cake, and when all those elements come together and you come off air, you just think, wow, I created something. Well, not me personally, but something really amazing was created there. And the beauty of it after that is it's gone. With pre-recorded things, you do it and then you're like, oh, that wasn't quite perfect, so can we do it again? That wasn't quite perfect, so can we do it again? With live television, you've just got to make it as great as you possibly can in that moment, and then it's gone, and then it's on to the next. So for me, I find that it's difficult. As you say, it involves a lot of multitasking, but I really do. That's probably where I'm at my happiest.
Yeah. They stay with me during the podcast, because like you said, you'll think of nothing else apart from just you and the guest or guest in front of you, just listening to them. That's it. And for me, I find it really addictive just to like learn from people and talk to them, just listen. It's amazing, isn't it? It really is.
It's so true, and it makes you think, when are those opportunities when we are genuinely listening? I think in today's world, they're few and far between, unless you're in this kind of industry, as you say, where it is your job to really listen. And it's, you've got to really listen, because that's what informs what your next question is going to be about. And then you come away from it and feel like, gosh, I've actually had a really good conversation there, because I've been genuinely listening to what's going on, which is great.
It's so true. And do you get much of a chance to prep beforehand, before each live showing, or is it literally like, okay, on in 10, here's your auto cue, here's your guest, here's your questions, go?
There is a lot of prep that goes into it. So for example, I start Crimewatch next month, so we're live every day for 3 weeks. And that is a full-on run for the production team and for Rav, the other presenter, and myself. But there is time to prep, and especially for live TV programs, you do need that time to prep, because you need to make sure that what you're actually about to say live on air is correct, and there's no kind of legal issues, and you're not going to tie yourself in knots live on television where someone can't just press the stop button and you redo it. So prep is integral. With a lot of these things, it's about the amount of time that you have to prep differs. Like, for example, when I do Crimewatch, we will get into the studio about 6:30 in the morning, and then we'll have a rehearsal. So we'll rehearse for the cameras and the director. Then we'll have another full rehearsal as if the program is live, and that will be with the contributors. The contributors get to practice their answers and understand what the feeling is like being in the studio. And then we'll do the live show. And the night before, we'll be sent the scripts and the VTs, the film packages for any appeals that we'll be doing in the show. So the night before, I'll read through the script, I'll make my notes on my interviews, I'll watch all the films that are going to be included within that show. So when I get there at 6:30 the next morning, I'm fully across every single element of that show. And it really helps, because then if something changes, you think, and the director says, you're swapping that with that, you're like, okay, you understand it, because you're not thinking, what's that about? You're as prepped as much as you can be, but then you accept it's live television and things are going to change.
Of course. I mean, do you find any particular moments or particular stories over the years really difficult to do on your behalf, do you feel?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with Crimewatch, it's like, it's a daily thing. I think especially with the last series that we did in March, there was one that was really difficult, because it was someone of a similar age to my brother, who sadly was murdered in an area that's not too far from me. And when something you can really and it was, he was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and you just feel so sorry for the families. And I was interviewing the chap's brother. He came on to make an appeal for any information, and you cannot imagine what they're going through, but in that moment you kind of feel their pain, and trying to create the right balance between being that professional, and you want to be that professional for them, because you want to give them the best opportunity to get information as possible, appeal for information. But then at the same time, you're a human being thinking, oh my God, at any moment, I feel like I could just break down here, because this is heartbreaking. So there are, I've had a couple of those times when I've been sat in my hotel room in the evening, reading through my prep for Crimewatch, thinking this is, as I say, heartbreaking. But at the same time, as a journalist, you have to remember that, these people are coming on when you're interviewing them, because there's an opportunity to get some answers, to get some resolution, to get some closure, and you're helping, assisting within that process. So it kind of reminds you of why you're doing what you're doing. And that, especially with Crimewatch, we've had some amazing results of people calling in through watching the program, saying, I've seen that wanted face, and that is why that, I mean, we're doing an anniversary of the 250th episode of Crimewatch when we're back on air in September, and this is for the daytime series. It just shows that it's helping people, it's making a difference, which is quite a humbling thing to be a part of.
For sure. And I know you've got to go in a minute, so I want one or two more questions, but
sure.
You've done so many amazing things, like obviously Crimewatch, like I mentioned there, World's Strongest Man, Loose Women, The One Show, a million amazing things. And for you, what have been some of your kind of personal highlights that you've achieved over the years so far in your career?
Personal highlights, for me in general, I love the fact that my career to date has been so varied. And that's what I'd like to continue with. I think you can get variety, to be fair, as well, even just being on the one program. The One Show, for example, when I was doing that quite regularly, you'd be interviewing a different person every night. So that was fascinating. And I guess one of my kind of standout moments from doing that show was interviewing Samuel L. Jackson. He came on to promote Kong Skull Island, and he walked in with the coolest coat on, and he just had this air of, he was just so suave, so sophisticated, and just as cool as. And then I'm there thinking, what? I can't actually believe I'm about to. I've watched this guy in so many movies over the years, and now he's just sat here and he's saying, "Nice to meet you, Michelle." He's just called me by my name. Like, what the hell is going on? This is mad. This is mad. So for me, that was a massive highlight. Another random one from the one show was Jake Gyllenhaal came on to promote a film. And then afterwards, he'd been having such a lovely time. Like, he spent another 45 minutes just chatting to Matt and I in the corridor. He was talking about he's really into his farming and all the different vegetables he grows, to the point where his PR people were like, we need to be going now. Like, come on. It's like, I'm having a nice time, this is chill, I'm cool. Again, just very surreal seeing these like Hollywood stars that you watch on films in real life as real people. And then I guess, bringing it right up to date, one of the real highlights for me most recently has been filming a new series for BBC One with my mum. Especially, at a time during the pandemic where we've not been able to see loved ones and had separation from friends and family, to be coming out of the COVID situation and to have, 15 episodes commissioned for BBC One doing a series with my mum. It's just been such a delight. Calling each other in the morning, what are you wearing today? Oh, I don't know, what are you wearing today? And just having that different dynamic, like for me as an interviewer, as part of my career, to be able to find a new dynamic with my mum, but also mum as a presenter, like us finding our own kind of thing together has been really, really special. And like I was saying before, those moments aren't lost on me, that I've had the opportunity to do that, and I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, that is amazing. And you know what? That is the most perfect way to end the podcast. I always want to finish on such a positive note, but I can't thank you enough for today, Michelle. Thank you, honestly.
Oh, no, it's been lovely chatting to you, Georgio. Honestly, thank you for asking me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you too. And where can people find you online, just in case?
So I am on Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is Michelle_Ackerley, and my Twitter is Mich Ackerley.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Cheers. I might go and watch Superman this afternoon now, Georgio. You've inspired me with your picture.
Thank you. The picture of me.
Of course.
Oh, thank you so much again, Michelle. We loved it. Thank you.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.